then that industry should have a works committee formed which is under the Industrial Disputes Act. So these are all normally the committees which are to be formed. Again, the Factories Act is to extend health, safety, welfare to the workers and also to the environment. There are these three big chapters. Suppose in case if you have air compressor or pressure plant in your factory, then you have to ensure that that is periodically tested. Normally there will be again various kinds of examination. External examination which is to be done once in 6 months, internal once in a year. If it is hydrostatic, it is once in 2 years. If it is a hydraulic test, it is to be done once in 4 years. So depending upon the construction of that receiver, this type of test will be determined. Definitely external examination you have to do. Along with that, you may have to do the internal examination or hydrostatic or hydraulic. That will be decided based on how it is constructed in that particular factory. Once that is decided, then the external examination, then that particular examination according to that periodicity you have to do to ensure the safety of the workers working inside the establishment, industrial establishment. And the competent person will do the testing. You may have to get the certificate from him. You have to keep it safe. And when the inspector of factories comes for inspection to your factory, you are supposed to produce that. Otherwise, again, it will be considered as non-compliance. If testing is not done, or if the testing is not done within the periodicity mentioned, there will be a corresponding punishment for that also. For any non-compliance in any of these labor legislations, it will be either fine or imprisonment or both, depending upon the gravity of the offence committed. Ensuring payment of wages, I think this we discussed when in the introduction part itself. It is purely under the Payment of Wages Act. So you cannot have a wage period exceeding 1 month, right? It can be less than 1 month. Once in 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, you can make the payment. Daily wage, yes, it is okay. But wage period shall not exceed 1 month. And it should be paid either within 7 days after the wage period or 10 days after the wage period, depending upon the number of workers, whether it is less than 1,000 or 1,000 or more. That is the basis. And one more aspect in payment of wages is you have to ensure that minimum rates of wages are paid. Right, for each employment, what is the minimum rate to be paid will be given by the appropriate authority, whether it is a state government or central government. So you should know what is the minimum rate of wages fixed for your type of industry, for each employment in your industry. And when you issue the appointment order, you have to ensure that it is not below the minimum rates of wages fixed. Right. And taking care of social security measures, yes, ESI and PF. These two are the main social security measures. ESI main purpose is to extend the medical benefits or cash benefits to various benefits are given under the legislation. Once the person is coverable under the legislation, then he is eligible for getting those benefits. And from the first day of coverage itself, he can take the medical treatment from the ESI dispensaries. That is possible. Right? What is the salary ceiling for ESI? Coverage of people under ESI? Yeah, fine. So for PF? 6,500. Okay, fine. So in case if an establishment is registered under ESI and some of the people working in the establishment are covered under ESI, then the ESI contributions are to be remitted every month, should be remitted within 21 days after the end of the wage period. And in case of PF, it should be remitted within 15 days after the end of the wage period. And the rate of contribution for ESI is, what is the rate of contribution? 1, any one. 1.75. Okay. Okay, 1.75% of the wage by the employee and 4.75% of the wage by the employer in respect of each employee who is covered under the Act. That is how it goes. And in case of PF, okay, it is 12% by the employee and matching contribution by the employer. And of course, there are certain returns to be submitted under each legislation. Under ESI, yes, you have to submit a return. And under PF, yes, monthly returns are there as well as annual return you have to submit. And ensuring payment of bonus and gratuity. See, earlier bonus was not a right of an employee, right? It also, the payment of bonus also started only during the First World War, just as a welfare measure. One time they paid and maybe after 2-3 years they did not pay. Then there were huge uproar. In fact, union activities, again violent activities, particularly in textile unions in Ahmedabad and Mumbai. And then government thought of it and made this payment of bonus as a right of an employee. This is now considered as a deferred wage. Right? See, once the act becomes applicable, suppose if an employee has worked for 30 working days in an accounting year, then he will become eligible for payment of bonus. And if his salary is less than 10,000, then he will be eligible. Otherwise, he is not entitled for payment of bonus. Right? And the minimum bonus payable is 8.33% and maximum bonus payable is 20%. And for the first 5 accounting years, subsequent to the accounting year in which the establishment commences its business, the infancy period is available, which means if there is no profit in these 5 accounting years, then the employer is not required to make the bonus payment. But if there is a profit in any of these years, for that year alone, bonus is to be declared and paid. Right? And gratuity is a retirement benefit. For suppose if an employee completes 5 years of service, then he will become eligible for payment of gratuity. Whatever be the type of termination, maybe due to resignation or retirement or whatever it is. If he has completed 5 years of service, then he will become eligible for payment of gratuity. What is the calculation for payment of gratuity? Sorry? How will you arrive at the quantum of gratuity? So it is 15 days wages for every completed year of service. If it is 15 days wages for every completed year of service. Suppose if a person's monthly salary is 5,000, to arrive at daily wage it is to be divided by 26, not by 30 or 31. Right? So 5,000 divided by 26, that will give you per day wage into 15. So you will get 15 days wages into number of completed years of service. If it is 7, then it is to be multiplied by 7. If it is 7 and 7 months, since it is over and above 6 months, you have to treat it as 8 years. So it should be multiplied by 8. If it is 7 years and 5 months, you have to pay only for 7 years. So you have to multiply it by 7. Right? That is how the calculation goes. And providing training and employment. Training, it is mainly under the Apprentices Act. For those who have completed diploma, they will be considered as a technician apprentice. Those who have come out from the ITA, they will be considered as trade apprentices. There are more than 125 trades. And Bachelor of Engineers, they will be considered as graduate trainees. And +2 vocational course students, they will be considered as technician vocational apprentices. These are all the 4 types of apprentices. And if the apprenticeship advisor had visited your establishment, made a survey and fixed a quota of apprentices to be engaged in your establishment, that will be normally done based on the after arriving at ascertaining the training facility available in your establishment as well as the number of people working in your establishment to provide training. So once this quota is fixed, then you have to ensure that that much number of apprentices are engaged in your establishment at any given point of time. Right? Some of the apprenticeship period for some trades will be 1 year, for some trades it will be 2 years, that will vary. Right? And employment, it is the Employment Exchanges Act. As far as employers in private sector are concerned, it is not mandatory on their part to recruit people through employment exchanges, but the very purpose is statistical in nature. They may have to submit certain returns, they may have to notify the vacancies before they recruit the people. All those things they have to do, even though they are in private sector. And extending benefits to women workers, which is under the Maternity Benefit Act. A woman worker will become eligible for maternity benefit if she has completed 80 days of work in the preceding 12 months, which is immediately preceding the anticipated date of delivery, expected date of delivery. If she has completed 80 days, then she will become eligible for maternity benefit. Normally, maternity benefit will be 12 weeks leave with full wages. Right? Even after that, if she is suffering from any illness connected to pregnancy, then she is to be given another 1 month of leave with full wages. So normally 12 weeks means it is 3 months. If this 1 month is added, then 4 months. Apart from that, if she is on leave for any reason, the employer need not give any leave with wages. She can go on loss of pay. Right? It is not mandatory on the part of the employer to make any payment for those days. And also Equal Remuneration Act. There is one act called Equal Remuneration Act, which says that there shall not be any prohibition based on the gender. Simply because that person is a woman, I cannot say I will be giving only 5,000, whereas I pay more than 5,000 for a person, male, who is doing the same job. That is not possible. That is the very purpose of the Equal Remuneration Act. So contractor compliance, I have specifically brought it as a separate point because again, particularly after the introduction of this liberalization, privatization and globalization, lot of companies are resorting to engagement of contract workers. They outsource their job so that their strength of direct employees is reduced and indirect employee is increased. Right? So there will be flexibility of employment. But for the contract workers and the contractors, there is a separate legislation called Contract Labor Regulation and Abolition Act, under which both the principal employer as well as the contractors, they do have certain compliances like maintenance of registers, submission of returns, and payment of wages to contract workers is primarily the responsibility of the contractor. The contractor is considered as the paymaster for the contract worker, but if the contractor fails, the liability will revert to the principal employer. So the principal employer has to make the payment, but he can recover it from the contractor. That is possible. Right? So there are a lot of compliance activities like maintenance of registers. Number of registers are to be maintained by contractors than the principal employer. Principal employer is supposed to maintain only one register. Right? The principal employer has to do the registration under the Act. The contractor has to take a license under this Act. If he does not have the license, he does not have the powers to undertake any job. Right? And of course, other procedural compliances which are common for some of the legislations like maintenance of various statutory registers, submission of periodical returns, remitting the contributions within the timeline like ESI, PF, Labour Welfare Fund, all those things, and display of abstracts in a prominent location and display of certain statutory notices are all important, and only on seeing these records, the inspector, when he visits the establishment, he will ensure that yes, this company is complying with the applicable legislations. Otherwise, there will be remarks from the inspecting authority, then you will be getting the notice, then lot of things. Fine or imprisonment, all those things. Okay, certain interesting items. So the number 240 is very important as far as labor legislations are concerned. If a person has completed 240 days of work in a year, in a continuous period of 12 months, then getting rid of his services is highly difficult. Almost it is next to impossibility, right? And there is one legislation under Tamil Nadu, which is Tamil Nadu Industrial Establishment Conferment of Permanent Status to Workman Act, which says if a person has completed 480 days of work in a continuous period of 24 months, which is 2 years, then he is to be made permanent. If a person has completed 480 days of work in a continuous period of 24 months, then he is to be made permanent. So 480 is again 240 into 2, right? And under the Payment of Gratuity Act and under the Industrial Disputes Act and under the Factories Act, if a person has completed 240 days of work in a period of 12 months, then he is considered to have completed 1 year of service. Again 240 into 1 is 240. Right? Again under Payment of Gratuity Act, if a person has completed 120 days of work in a period of 6 months, only 120 days, then he is deemed to have completed 6 months of service under Payment of Gratuity Act. So 120 means it is 240 into half. So 240 into 2, 240 into 1, 240 into half. Right? And as I said, under Maternity Benefit Act, if a woman employee, if she has completed 80 days of work in the 12 months, then she will become eligible for maternity benefit. 80 days, which is 240 into 1 by 3. Right? Then in case of closure of an establishment, the notice is to be given 60 days in advance. 60 is 240 into 1 by 4. So 240 into 2, 240 into 1, 240 into 1 by 2, 240 into 1 by 3, then 240 into 1 by 4. And for a person to become eligible for payment of bonus, he should have completed 30 days of work, which means 240 into 1 by 8. Right? And for the applicability of many of the legislations, the establishment should have either 20 or more employees or 10 or more employees. If it is 20, then it is 240 into 1 by 12. If it is 10, it is 240 into 1 by 24. So the number 240 assumes significance in the application of labor legislations. Some of the legislation I am just mentioning. There are a lot other legislations where 240 is very important. And recruiting persons less than 18 years, yes, it is possible even in a factory. But under Indian Contract Act, you cannot engage a person, right? Because for entering it, the appointment order is considered as contract of employment. It's a contract between a person and the management. So both the parties should be competent enough to enter into a contract. If you are recruiting a person who is less than 18, then he is considered as a minor. He cannot enter into a contract. That is the reason most of the companies are not employing people who are less than 18 years. Otherwise, there is no bar or prohibition from the labor legislation side. Right? Only if a person is less than 14, he cannot engage. Child Labor Act. If he is more than 14 and if he is producing the medical fitness certificate to take up employment, you can engage. But there will be a prohibition from Indian Contract Act, totally a different legislation, not the labor legislation. Right? Still, if you want to engage persons who are less than 18, you can go ahead, but you may have to get the acknowledgement or you may have to get the contract entered into with the guardian of that minor till such time he attains 18 years. Right? And job descriptions, manager versus workman. See, you may be aware of this, whether a person is a workman or not depends upon the nature of activities performed by that individual. It is not the mere designation. Right? A person may hold a designation as manager, but yet he may be doing a worker's job. Right? So there are certain things like recommending for giving promotion, sanctioning leave, or representing the company for the world at large. All those things are there, right? Only these are considered as certain managerial activities. If a person does not have powers to do this, even if he is designated as a manager, in the eyes of law, he is not a manager. right? So what is important is for each and every person working in your establishment, you have to ensure there are pakka job descriptions. That alone will determine whether a particular person is a workman or a manager. And national and festival holidays, yes, this will differ from one state to another state. The number of holidays, it is 4 plus 5, 4 national holidays and 5 festival holidays in Tamil Nadu. It is 4 plus 9 in Kerala. It is 3 plus 5 plus 2, 3 national holidays, 5 festival holidays and 2 state holidays in Karnataka. It is 5 plus 4 in Andhra. Some of the northern states, they do not have this legislation at all. And in some states like Maharashtra, it is sufficient if you declare only 3 days, national holidays alone. So though we call it as national holidays, it is not uniform across the country. So in case if we have operations in different states, you cannot have uniform policy. Right? So location to location, this will vary. And splitting up of minimum wages, suppose if 4,000 rupees is fixed as minimum wages for a particular employment, if it is split up like what I have given here as basic 3,000 and HRA, house rent allowance 1,000. So the total is 4,000, which is equivalent to the minimum rate of wages, which is okay for the purpose of Minimum Wages Act. But this is not okay for the purpose of PF, this is not okay for the purpose of bonus. Right? So when you structure your salary for your company, you may have to take into account what is the existing law, what are all the different complexities involved. So you have to consider all those things. Only then you can finalize your salary structure, which is in line with existing laws. Right? Fine. And of course, these are all the complaints activities which normally Aparajita is doing for various clients across the country. Lakshadweep is the only place where we do not have operations. In all the other places we have the operations. And when we go for, in fact, we do it with our own employees. We do not have tie-up with any other agency. Even if you go to northern states or northeastern states, our own employees will be there. And we normally, when we look at the, when we recruit a person, we look at these qualities. The person should have passion for the subject, right? Particularly label as, and analytical ability, communication skills. Communication skills, I really do not mean the language. He should be in a position to clearly explain himself to the client or to the government authority or maybe to other people whoever he comes across. Right? Of course, language is added advantage. And proper documentation. Whether it is mail communication or whatever it is, there must be clear record. Networking. So again, communication is very important for networking. Otherwise, the person cannot establish relationship with any of the stakeholders. So that is very important. So with this, I close my presentation. And quickly, if you have any queries, you have time, Leo?
5 minutes.
For how many questions? You have time.
You can raise your hand. For the first 3, we would like to give chance. Any questions on the session?
Or otherwise, next session will be again interactive session. Maybe we can have that during that time also. Thanks a lot for the patient listening.
To Mr. Varadin. Now the session is a panel discussion. This is basically on the business verticals emerging under HR statutory compliances. In your folder, you will be seeing a brochure like this. Probably some of the business verticals, what Aparajita is dealing with, it is there. For this panel discussion, I would introduce the panelist, Mr. Anandaraj. Please come. Anandaraj is looking after what you find it here is Establishment Compliance Services, ECS. And Mr. Nagarajan, who is taking care of a combined service called HRCS, which includes contract labor compliance services CLRS, payroll compliance services PCS, flexi staffing services FSS, payroll services PRS. We have Mr. Ganesh with us, who is corporate HR person from Aparajita, who is taking care of our HR, corporate HR. And we have Mr. B.S. Ramachandran, who is taking care of factory compliance services. And along with that, Mr. Varadan, who has facilitated the session, will be the panelist. Over to panelist.
Maybe I'll slightly explain the services which are mentioned here. Consulting and audit services. It is in fact for framing HR policies. Some of the corporates, they require consultation purely based on the application of labor legislations. Even for, say, finalizing the leave policy. As I said, suppose if it is shops and establishments covered, if having operations in more than one state, then how can they have uniform leave policy, right? See, normally I said if you take Tamil Nadu, in case of if it is a shops and establishment, then the number of days of leave to be declared is 12 days privilege leave, 12 days casual leave, and 12 days sick leave, right? But the position may not be the same in other states. It may be 12 days, 5 days, and 7 days. Or in some states, the sick leave will not be there in some of the states, right? And number of days of leave which can be accumulated will also differ. In one state, you can accumulate for a maximum of 30 days. In another state, it could be 60 days. In some of the states, you cannot accumulate at all. The leave will get lapsed at the end of the calendar year, right? So what will happen? No, they can have different policies applicable for their employees working in different locations, but still that can bring in some sort of HR issues or IR issues, right? So person working in the same company, but simply because he is in Bangalore, Karnataka, he may get, say, X number of days of leave. But suppose if a person is working in Tamil Nadu, he may get Y number of days, right? So that can give rise to sort of IR issues or HR issues. So in those situations, they may require consultation as to what exactly is the provision in these locations and what is the possibility of having uniform number of days of leave in order to avoid this HR or IR issues, right? For those things, before framing the policy, they would like to have some sort of consultation. Or, as I said in the previous session, last point, how can I structure my salary so that it is in line with the provisions of all the legislations applicable to my establishment? So those suggestions also we will give as a company. So that is what we mean by saying consultation. And auditing, yes, the company will be already, whether it is a factory or the establishment, they will be already doing the compliance activities, but they will require us to do the audit, labor law compliance audit, whether they are complying with all the applicable legislations or is there any gap. If there is a gap, then what is the suggestion for plugging it, right? So audit is a regular service which also we do. And establishment compliance services means it is compliance services, whatever we discussed, the maintenance of registers, the submission of returns and making contributions, ESI, PF, all those things, arranging for display of notices, arranging for display of abstracts, all those things. We will take care on behalf of the clients situated, even if they are situated in more than one location, right? In respect of the establishments covered under Shops and Establishments Act alone, right? Likewise, we have more than 15,000 establishments across India for which we provide service for different clients. That is what we mean by saying establishment compliance services. The next one is factory compliance service. It is similar to establishment compliance, but it is for factories. Right? So the Shops and Establishments Act will not be the regulatory or governing legislation for those factories. It will be the Factories Act. Along with Factories Act, all the other legislations will be applicable. Right? So likewise, around 500 factories, we are providing service across India. And the contract labor compliance service is, as I said again, big industries, they have many contractors. But the contractors may not be aware of the labor provisions applicable to him, and he will not be interested in doing the compliance work also. But even if he does not do, then the liability will automatically revert to the principal employer. So what will happen? The principal employer will engage Aparajita to take care of the contractor's compliance. That is the reason I brought it as a separate point in my presentation also. So it is not for the principal employer's establishment, but for those contractors who are working in that establishment, whatever statutory compliance activity to be done by the contractors, we will take care of, we will be doing those activities on behalf of those contractors, so that the principal employer is relieved of the responsibility. He is safe. That is the activity mentioned under Contract Labor Compliance Services, CLCS. And next one is Payroll Compliance Services, which means, see, we will not be running the payroll for those clients, but instead there are certain legislations like ESI. Only after running the payroll, you will be arriving at the contribution amount. Likewise for PF. And if it is sometimes profession tax, it will also be added to our service. And labor welfare fund. So these remittances, that is fiscal law, financial laws, this is related to finance. Right? This activity will alone be outsourced to us, which we will take care under the head payroll compliance services. And flexi staffing service, yes, see, a particular job will be entrusted to Aparajita for a shorter period, say 2 years for 3 years. So for carrying out the obligation arising out of this particular contract, we will be engaging persons on our own employees. But these persons will be our employees only till such time that project lasts. Take for example, construction of a bridge. Right? So bridge will be constructed, construction will be over within 4 years or 5 years maximum. After 5 years, those people will not have any job. See, it is project-based assignment. If certain projects are assigned to us, then we will be recruiting the people, we will be doing the activity, so that again the principal employer will not have any liability. So, or for this shorter period work, they need not recruit direct employees, but once if they recruit, then they need to keep them forever. So that is the reason they outsource that particular activity alone. We call it as projects. So that is what we mean by saying flexi staffing services. And payroll services, yes, of course, it is running of payroll. For certain companies, they will be providing the data regularly, monthly basis. We will be running the payroll using our own software, and high confidentiality will be maintained. Even our director level persons will not have any access to it. Only those people who are working in that practically, they alone will have the access. Nobody can enter into that room also. It is a software which was developed by us on our own, and this will be used for this purpose. And there will be audit from the client side also, whether we are doing it properly, whether we are maintaining the confidentiality and all. That is what we do under the head payroll services. So payroll compliance services is different, payroll services is different. So these are all the kinds of services which we provide. And maybe I would now request Mr. Ganesh of HR to explain our operations. How do